Today on Rambling About Cars, something has happened that has never happened before in the history of the entire universe. There's an all-wheel drive Corvette that's called the E-Ray, and you know we're going to talk about that. We also have the swan song for the Aston Martin DBS. We have the rotary returns, sort of. Some more news from
It returned, maybe not in the way we wanted it to return, but
it returns, but maybe it's like be careful what you wish for. I don't know. And we
yeah, it's
also
kind
have
of the
some Hyundai
monkey
stuff to
paw.
talk about. And something weird with the Mustang Mach-E. So let's roll. It's podcast
Oh,
time. I am
yeah.
Christopher Smith, and Mr. Chris Bruce is across the way. How you doing, man? It feels like it's been a busy week for us.
It does feel that way. I think both personally and professionally, things have been busy, things have been
Mhm.
happening, things have maybe been too much, I think I would hazard to say.
It's like,
It's been a
yeah, it's like one of those weeks where it's like when you look at the website, I mean, we're putting up what, like 25, 30 articles a day. I mean, between all the writers, not just you and me.
of
I
course, yeah.
mean, there's all kinds of content at motor1.com.
Yep,
And we have some big stories this week, but
definitely.
it feels like an auto show week to me for some reason, but it hasn't been an auto show week.
No, it has. I mean, there's been some big news dropping this week, and then also, I think both in our personal lives, there's been some big news dropping this week. So it's been a
Yeah, I got
lot.
my
It's been a big one.
but I got my new office just about squared away here.
You're
So
getting close. Yeah, you were
if
showing me
you
right before we
want,
started recording.
you need to go to Motor One Podcast on YouTube, and you can actually see this little cave that I am creating at
I
my
like
new
your little
house.
hand. You
So
you got some spirit fingers almost as you show it off.
jazz hands, jazz
Jazz hands.
hands,
That's right. Yeah.
jazz hands. Who cares about jazz hands when there's a 665 horsepower Corvette? Let's just jump right in and talk about that. That's what everybody wants to hear, right? The
That's right.
Corvette E-Ray, not the Stingray, the E-Ray is finally official. It just debuted here a couple days ago. As you're listening to this, 2024 Corvette E-Ray. It does have 665 horsepower.
Sure
It
does.
gets that power from not one engine, but one engine and one electric motor. I'm going to be a stickler on that because in my mind, engine is always like the internal combustion. Motor is your electrified. Some people consider it a distinction. I'm one of them, but I'm a nerd like that. So
Well, you and I have been writing about cars for decades now. You and I both have, I think,
no,
well
don't
over a
don't
decade
phrase
in
it.
this.
Don't phrase it that way, dude.
I've got over a decade in this. I'm 99% sure you do too.
Yeah,
So
but but that's not the point. It makes it sound much longer.
sure,
Or
that's fair.
maybe it feels that way. It's been a long week. Let's just talk about the damn E-Ray.
Okie doke. So it looks like you took a C8 Stingray and a C8 Z06 and they went into a closet for 7 minutes in heaven, and this is what came out. Uh it-
7 minutes. So what'd you do for the other 6.5? Oh, okay.
but
We need to we need to turn this frown upside down. No, I mean we've seen the visuals on this before. I
sure.
mean we've seen prototypes running around uncamouflaged. Yeah, I mean you have basically the front clip of the Z06. You have the side intakes of the Z06. It's the wider stance of the Z06, but when you get to the back, it has the Stingray just kind of squared off exhaust outlets on the corners. That's because it has the Stingray 6.2 liter V8.
Yep.
That is still, I believe, Bruce, at 495 horsepower.
Well, keep in mind though that the regular displacement of that is 490. You have to
Right.
get the sport exhaust to get the 495.
Right. The
And this just
495.
makes 495.
Right.
So, yeah.
And of course, the rest of that comes from the single electric motor that is now mounted up front. And that
Correct.
brings your combined output to 665 horsepower. That electric motor feeds the front wheels.
Yep.
So
Exclusively.
this is the world's first electrified Corvette. It is the world's first all-wheel drive Corvette. And I'm digging this. I don't know why I'm digging this, but I am. If you engage stealth mode, You have the world's first front-wheel drive Corvette because stealth
Mhm.
mode lets you run on just the electric motor at speeds up to 45 miles per hour, I believe. At that point, the engine will kick in, and you have to be gentle with the throttle to do that. Otherwise,
Yes.
the engine will kick in. Um,
Also, there is still a lingering question that we don't know. So the battery, it's in the tunnel
mhm.
between the kind of the frunk area and the engine area, essentially where you would put your arm for the center console. Underneath that is where the battery lives. It is 1.9 kilowatt hours gross, or sorry, yes, 1.9 kilowatt hours gross, but the usable of that is only 1.1 kilowatt hours. And the point I'm trying to make with all those numbers is that we don't yet know how far one could go on that battery. We
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
have.
yeah, we don't have that, and I don't think. I mean, we want to know just because we want to know, but I don't think Chevrolet is thinking about it in that respect. This
No,
isn't
no,
this
right.
isn't designed. I mean, the E-Ray isn't the efficient Corvette.
No,
It's done in the same vein as like your new AMG models from Mercedes.
correct.
Electrification there, the electrification is there for performance.
Yes.
So you're not really thinking in terms of how far you could go with that small of a battery. You're not going to go far.
No.
You're
It's
not gonna go far at all.
uh,
And I mean, I
if
saw a
it's
video.
I won't be shocked if it's sub 5 miles. If it's 2 miles is kind of where my mind is putting it.
Yeah.
Again, we don't know, but just kinda doing some kinda, back of d d the scrap piece of paper math in my head, I bet it's between 2 and 5
Mhm.
miles is
And
my
and
guess.
again, you would have to drive it in a very, very specific manner to
Mhm.
do that. I mean, this isn't a plug-in hybrid.
No.
This is just a sort of your traditional first generation style hybrid system. Like we said, the motor is there for performance enhancement. And in this case, I mean, you're getting it 665 combined horsepower. It's almost what you're getting with the Z06, but
Pretty close.
with this being all-wheel drive, this is in addition to the first electrified Corvette, the first all-wheel drive Corvette, it is also the fastest Corvette ever, at least in a straight line.
Quickest, not
Quickest.
fastest.
Thank
I
you.
know
Thank you.
our
The,
boss, Seth Mearsma, would get on my case about that, but it's been drilled into my head for way too long
There
that it
is a
is.
distinction. I'm
Yeah.
with you. There is a distinction. We did an episode. I'm going to go off the rails a little bit. We did.
No,
It
I'm
was like
here
one of
for
our.
it. Sure.
It was one of our early episodes where we were talking about vehicle definitions, and we should revisit that here pretty soon.
Sure.
Sedans. The definition of a sedan traditionally it wasn't just relating to the number of doors. Same with.
Mhm.
We can also talk about coupe, wagon versus shooting brake, all of that stuff. Engine versus motor, quick versus fast. Okay. I'll back on the rails. Back on the rails. I had to mention that because you know what? Ramblers, send us your thoughts on definitions that you think we need to discuss. Podcast at motor1.com is the email. Quick little shout out there early on. Of course, we want you to like, follow, subscribe. Back to the Corvette. It's the quickest because it goes 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. The
Mhm.
Z06 is 2.6, I believe,
I believe that's correct. I'm fairly
which
certain that's correct, in fact.
is it's academic at,
It is.
at that point. It's academic. I mean, you're talking about a tenth of a second. If you're drag racing and you're at the end of the quarter mile, yes, you'll see you will visually see easily a tenth of a second difference. When you're just driving around town, accelerating, even jumping off the line of the drag strip, 2.5 to 2.6, very, very close. But it technically, by the numbers, is the quickest Corvette ever. Of course, the all-wheel drive is making that happen. You're getting the all-wheel drive grip. It also helps that it has the wider Z06 stance. So I mean, you're getting a lot of
Mhm.
tire down on the ground with that thing.
You sure are.
Um, and yeah, we know. I mean, we've known it's been coming for a while. course, Chevrolet wasn't the Chevrolet wasn't shy in teasing it, saying, "Okay, electrified, here we go." Bruce, I've kind of been babbling along here. Why don't you offer a little bit of input here on this Corvette?
So we've hit a lot of the main tech specs. I'll hit a few other things. It comes standard with carbon ceramic brakes. That's just a standard feature across the board, not an option or anything like that, which is interesting because not a lot of vehicles come standard. Like the Z06, which you kind of consider the track version of the Corvette, it doesn't come standard with carbon ceramic brakes. So that's interesting. Um, the other thing is that it has some tweaks to the interior. We showcased a video from our colleagues at Car and Driver. They got to take a ride in it. Motor One is actually, I think I can, maybe I can't say this. We might be taking a ride in it soon. Maybe. I think I can definitely say that. We might be taking a ride in it soon. But
There's a 100% chance that we might be doing something.
correct. But Car and Driver already got to take a look at it, and it has this interesting, how did they call it? It's not rolling start, it's oh, I can't think of the word. Basically, as you go from stealth mode to the engine activating, there is a unique animation that happens across
yes.
the digital instrument cluster and the infotainment screen that, as the combustion engine starts up, that activates. And so it looks really cool. It's kind of fun. I wrote the story about it. To me, it's a neat gimmick. Like, it's not, it doesn't do anything. Like, it's not like, oh, it makes the car faster or, anything like that. It's just it's a gimmick, but not all gimmicks are bad. And so it's just kind of a neat little thing. And then also there are specific screens on the infotainment system for so you can see how much power the electrical portion of the powertrain is contributing versus how much power the combustion power is contributing. So just neat stuff like that. It's an interesting model. Smith, I have a question for you because I know Brandon and our Brandon Turkis, our colleague, he was talking about this. I can't remember who he was talking about it with. I want to say it was with Adrian, our other colleague. Basically saying that he would still rather have a Z06 over this model. And I think I disagree with him. And I'll tell you why. The chances of me taking a car to the track, maybe at absolute best, it would be a once a year type thing. It would be, and let's say my situation changes and I have a bunch more free time, something like that. And it becomes, I got a bunch of free time in the summer. So it becomes 8 times a year, but still that's one day at the track 8 times a year. I still think I would rather have this as a daily driving vehicle. The power, the kind of the daily usability, the fact that, you can cruise around if you're in your suburb or something like that on electric power, something like that. I just, to me, it's what I would prefer. But I also understand the counter argument. So give me your opinion.
Wrong.
Okay. I respect that.
That's me being mean. I think I kind of fall with and we're just name dropping like crazy in this podcast. I kind of fall with our colleague John Neff on this. It's a little a little disappointing to me in the EV sense. It feels like, I mean, we're talking about features that the Toyota Prius was doing 20 years ago. Where if you're easy on the gas, you can bump it along just on electric power alone. But again, this isn't designed. This isn't aimed at being an efficient vehicle. It's aimed at using electrification for performance, and in that respect, I mean, it succeeds. I feel like Chevrolet could have had this more powerful than the Z06. 665 versus 668.
Right.
Am I remembering that correct? 668 for the Z06.
Yeah,
It's
they
it's
could have, I
it's a
bet,
very convenient stopping point because hey, the Z06 is our it is our crown leader right now of the
for
Corvette
now.
line.
Yeah.
The E-Ray is cool. It has almost as much power. It's a little bit quicker in the straight line. The Z06 is still the performance champion, and I feel like maybe the power settings were set on the E-Ray so as to not make sure they got close but didn't go over Z06.
Mhm.
Um, to answer the question, I would take the Z06 simply
Okay.
because I would spend all of my time in the E-Ray wondering just how much more fun I could have going around this corner, even if I'm not at a track.
No, you wouldn't.
How
No, you
much?
wouldn't.
I think I would, even subconsciously, even if I'm not noticing a difference, I would still be thinking about okay, I should have had the Z06 because
I don't know,
they're
man.
priced they're priced about the same.
Okay, that's true.
They're priced about the same,
Let's
and
go ahead and
if
address that since
and
we know
and
those
if I'm
numbers.
and if I'm going to pay that amount of money, um, going with the E-Ray, I would want more electric benefits than just a little more horsepower and all-wheel
Okay.
drive. I'm not really interested in having an all-wheel drive Corvette. It's not something that I would necessarily be driving in the winter or rally style anyways. You could, and I'm
Mhm.
fine with that. I think it's
I mean,
neat.
you live in northern lower Michigan now, so
Mhm.
snow could happen at any moment for you.
Snow's
It could just
happening right
happen.
now. I mean,
Exactly.
it's happening right now. Um, but I don't need all-wheel drive to go out. If I want to drive my Corvette in the snow, I put some snow tires on it. I'm not gonna go up to like to Boyne Highlands or something, or I'm not gonna go up into the Upper Peninsula, up to the Keweenaw with a Corvette. I feel like the E-Ray should have been a plug-in hybrid with a bit more horsepower. Keep the all-wheel drive, give it an electric only operation, even if it's minimal. I mean, even AMG, they're utilizing their electric systems for performance, but they still offer an electric only component. Just because, hey, you know what? If I just want to just run into town and back, and I want to take the Corvette, but I just don't. Today's just one of those days where I just want a little bit of peace and quiet, but I want to enjoy the car. And yes, ramblers,
Does that person exist?
that person exists because he's talking right now. Maybe it's an
Okay.
maybe it's an age thing. Um, there are many, many times I've noticed over the last 10 years where I've had louder cars, especially now, where it's like, I'd like to go for a drive in the Mustang, but man, I just don't want to deal with all the noise. And yeah, I know you're out there, everybody that's listening, they're groaning, they're like, "Oh, shut up. What are you a car guy?" But yes, I'm a car guy. But every now and again, even car enthusiasts just hey, you want a little bit of relaxation. So if I'm going to pay the same amount of money for a Z06, for this E-Ray, give me something that has 10 miles of electric only range. So, you know what? If I just want to go for a nice quiet drive into town, I can still enjoy the Corvette. I can still have gobs of power. I mean, if I want to dip into the engine, I certainly can. Give me some of those benefits that you get with electric power other than just added performance. Because honestly, the electric add-ons here still aren't matching the Z06, at least when it comes to horsepower. It's still down 3 horsepower. Acceleration a tenth
Ooh,
of a second
but you
quicker
were the
doesn't
one that
mean
just
anything to
said,
me.
no, 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 no. I'm gonna call you on this. You were the one that was just saying they did that on purpose. Like a
Yeah.
tuner with a very slight ECU change could gain 3 horsepower somewhere.
Oh, so now I'm
Like
gonna pay another 5 grand to get the car that Chevy should have gave me in the first place? No.
yeah, okay. Real quick,
Sorry,
you
sorry,
mentioned
that's my take. That's my take.
okay, okay. You mentioned price. We should address price.
Mhm.
Starting price for the coupe, $104,295 for the convertible version. And yes, you will be able to get an E-Ray as a convertible. $111,295. Neither of those prices include the destination fee because we don't have that number yet.
I guess and Z06 starts what at like 110 thereabouts?
I
Or
think I'd have to
or
I'll
a little bit. I
double
mean,
check,
I
but
don't
that
have it right in front of me, but I know they're close. I know they're close. And I mean, hey, E-Ray is cool. It's all-wheel drive. Who's up for some all-wheel drive donuts in a Corvette? I am, raises his hand. Um, the electric motor driving just the front wheels. Who's up for some front wheel drive reverse donuts in a Corvette? Raises his hand. I am, but you wouldn't be able to do it in here, I don't think, because you have to be very, very light on the throttle to keep it just in electric only mode.
So, real quick, let's go ahead and
Mhm.
Z06 Coupe for 2023. We don't have 2024 prices yet.
Okay.
106,395. So, what is that? That's only about a $1,100. I'm
Yeah,
trying to
I
pull up
mean,
numbers.
for all intents and purposes, they are priced the same.
Yeah,
It's like, do you
104,295 to 106,395. Yeah, that's pretty close. That's
so I
for the
mean,
coupe.
mhm.
Convertible 113,895. Sorry, I'm looking at things. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
about
yeah,
2 grand
right.
ish,
And at
depending
that
on.
level, it's all blending together. I guess it comes down to, do you want your almost 700 horsepower Corvette turning just the rear wheels or all four? Do you want a little more straight line grip? Do you want a little more, a little more tail wagging in the corners? Do you want
Right.
something a little more race focused or a little more tech focused? Um, I mean, those aren't bad choices to have. And
No,
and
they're
I don't
not.
mean to and I don't mean to sound like I'm negative on the E-Ray. I think it's a pretty cool, fantastic Corvette. It's just not the one that I would choose. I would still have Z06.
See, I think I would choose this because, like I said, I don't. I'm not going to take it to the track. I think I would rather have this daily drivability. But as you were saying, it's nice that both are available, you know.
Mhm.
It's
Both are
interesting though
available.
that the prices are so close cuz if you have $106,000 for a car, you have what did I say $108,000
$106,995 for a
right.
car,
Like
right?
we're it's the difference of a couple thousand. It's like a difference of $2,000. But when you're talking about $100,000 car, that's a difference of that's 2% at that
Mhm.
point. So if you've got one, you've got the other,
Right.
and so it's an interesting dichotomy about which one you would get.
I mean, it's setting up, as I think about it here more, it's setting up a very interesting comparison. I'm
Yeah,
very interested to see how Z06 and E-Ray sales go,
sure.
because we're talking about cars with virtually identical straight line performance, virtually identical horsepower, virtually identical price. One is electrified with all-wheel drive and might be a little bit softer on the edges.
Yep.
The other is rear-wheel drive, a little more high strung, a little bit harder on the edges. So,
Yep.
but that's the Corvette E-Ray, folks. If we follow some of the leaked information that came out years ago at this point, that
hmm
so far it's been kind of playing out that
It's all
way.
been correct. So
So,
at
I
this
mean,
point,
so
we have to
far,
assume
I
the
mean,
rest of it's correct.
yeah, I mean, if you go back to, I mean, I think this is like 2020 or maybe even like late
19.
2020 or
Yeah.
early 2021, where they're talking about, okay, here's how things are going to play out. At that point, I think it wasn't sure if this was going to be called the E-Ray or Grand Sport.
hmm
Um, but I think the next step from here is ZR1.
I think so. I know Zora is the top of the heap where it's hybrid and twin
Right.
turbocharged.
So
But then
Z
there's a twin turbo version before that, and I can't remember what they're going to call it. I
I
think ZR1 is
I
correct.
think that was the idea for ZR1, which
I
would
think
basically
you're
be a
right.
twin turbo version of the Z06.
Yeah.
And then Zora, I mean, we're still probably like maybe 4 or 5 years down the road, according to that leaked report.
But like you said, it's all been right so
Mhm.
far. So, like,
We'll see.
yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
It,
There's one thing, and I'm going to throw this out there just because I thought it was funny. So, my wife and I recently moved to Columbus, Ohio,
Mhm.
and I did not realize this until she pointed it out to me. And she only saw it because she follows Columbus's Reddit page. But here,
Uh-oh.
I'm saying that to kind of stretch things out.
Reddit is always
Appar-
a bastion of goodness.
Apparently, the E-Ray images were all shot in the Columbus area.
Hmm.
I've got it up here, and the shots on the road are in the Hocking Hills area, which is where my aunt and uncle live.
Okay.
So it's just kind of a fun little thing. If you're wondering where those photos come from, if they're like photoshops or some fake place, they're not. They're Columbus / the Hocking Hills. So just thought
There
that was
you
a fun
go.
thing.
Automotive trivia from Rambling About Cars. You will not get this
Exactly.
anywhere else. You will dominate trivia nights. Um, let's talk about another supercar.
Let's do
Let's
that.
talk about another supercar. No electrification in this one. If you are just a fan of old school V12 power, we have the Aston Martin DBS 770 Ultimate.
It is.
And as you might imagine, Ultimate implies this is the ultimate evolution of the current generation DBS. It is the swan song to the line. What goes forward from here is uncertain at this point, but right now we have the highest output DBS ever. That's 759 horsepower from its twin turbo 5.2 liter V12 engine. Of course, 770 is the metric horsepower rating, which is where the 770 Ultimate name comes from. 759 horsepower. Only 499 of these special cars are going to be built. 300 in coupe, 199 in convertible. And if you want to know how much they cost, one, Aston Martin didn't say in their press announcement. Two, it doesn't matter because they've sold every single one already. Apparently, they reached out to Aston Martin customers ahead of time and said, "Hey, we're making this crazy powerful DBS. Do you want it before we go live?" And 499 people said yes. So
Which is
fabulous
sort of a
car.
it's sort of a bummer, or I guess maybe not in a way, because doesn't this seem like the perfect car, the perfect starting car for the next gen James Bond? Because we know Daniel Craig's not coming back,
Mhm.
that they are casting a new James Bond now. Maybe it'll be me, maybe it'll be Smith, maybe it'll be Cooper. I don't know. But
It's not going to be me.
okay.
I could be like Mr. Magoo.
So it's down to me and Cooper. Okay. So good to know. Um but yeah, new
Chris
James Bond's
Bruce.
on the way, and Daniel Craig's out, but this just seems like the perfect Bond car to
Well,
me.
if Craig was doing one more, I think this would be the perfect Bond car because it would be his exit and it would be the current gen DBS's exit. Um, and I mean, and that's really what this is. I mean, Aston Martin played that up to a very large extent in its announcement on this car. Um, Visually speaking, there are just a few small changes. The hood's a little different.
It's
The
tiny little
there's
changes.
some extra carbon fiber bits. Inside, you get some special stitching. You're getting some special colors, of course, badging that identify it. They do tweak the suspension just a little bit. They stiffen up the chassis a little bit. They give the dampers a special calibration that Aston says makes the car a little bit more controllable, but doesn't affect the ride quality. They're still very much aiming for this to be like the ultimate GT car,
Hmm.
something that you'll get in, take it to the track if you want and have fun, but something that you can also cruise across country with. Um, the engine upgrades came through a 7% increase in boost pressure, and they did that by just tweaking the intake and the ignition system a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, just say small changes. Its top speed's 211 miles an hour. The brakes are actually the same as you get on the other DBS. So, not a lot of changes other than it is the most powerful ever. Of course, you have the electrified, the Valhalla, the Valkyrie. But as far as just not naturally aspirated, but pure internal combustion, because obviously there's twin turbos here, no electrification. This is the pinnacle. And I guess the question to ask now, we've seen spy photos of what could be a new DB12 that's probably going to have
just last week we
V12
saw
power.
The first time. Yeah.
Are we looking at the end of the line for the DBS with the V12? And that's a question that nobody can answer really at this point. Earlier in 2022,
we don't know, but again, looking in my crystal ball, the tarot cards, however you want to say it, I think this is kind of the end of the line. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
It depends on how quickly a new internal combustion DBS would come out. I had the chance to do a roundtable with Aston Martin earlier last year, and the discussion ranged on V12 engines here a little bit. And at that point, Aston Martin said they weren't really looking at any evolution to their V12 because everything is going to be going electric. But they felt that in limited numbers, the V12 could stick around for a few more years. So whether we'll see something beyond this, we'll just have to wait and see. But for right now, this is very much the ultimate evolution of the DBS.
Yep. So Smith, we have some other stuff to talk about tonight, but also I'm just curious because you and I have never discussed this. What's your favorite Aston Martin, however you want to say it?
Oh man. I mean, I know DB5 is always the default answer, and I mean it's a cool car.
See, okay,
but not DB5. Probably. I think it was the 77 Vantage. Is the one I'm thinking
one
of?
looks like a Mustang.
It kind of it just kind of has that muscle car kind of look to it. I always thought those things were just wicked. Just they looked wicked. They sounded great. It's not a car that's often thought of, I don't think, when you're talking about Aston Martin. But I think that's fantastic. And maybe that's part of the reason why I like it, because I mean, somebody has to love the ones that nobody else talks to or pay attention to. Right. So, not that, well, I shouldn't say that. That car gets a fair amount of attention. It's not like
it's not like it's
the weird one. Maybe it doesn't get the attention it deserves.
It's not like a Lagonda with, all of the CRT TVs in it or something like that. So I think it gets some attention. Right. It was in a James Bond movie, if I'm not mistaken.
It was. I think it's if I remember correctly. I mean, it's been in a couple, including Craig's final film. I think, if I remember correctly. So I mean, he was driving. If it wasn't the final film, it was the one before that. Because he drove several different Aston Martins.
He did.
I think that was the last one he did. Because I mean, there's the scene with the DB5, and then at one point he's driving that older Vantage, and then he's driving a newer one. So yeah, that's my choice. What about you?
I think I have a soft spot. So you ask me this, and immediately, only because I have a family connection. No one in my family ever owned one, but the DB7 with I believe it's a supercharged inline six, which is essentially a Jaguar XK8 with a different engine, and then eventually later on it got a V12. Like I kind of like those, but it's so much Jaguar, I'm not sure. But I think like the DB9 only because of the James Bond connection, because it was around for so long, it got so many iterations. I would put my money on a DB9 if there was one that I had to have.
I guess with me, I mean, especially in the later years, there's so much overlap. I think that maybe takes a little bit of the mystique away from me.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's fair.
I mean, because I mean, the styling between the various models,
Oh, no, there's a
so
period
similar,
in yes, there's
so
a period
similar.
in the early 2000s
Yeah,
where they had 3 or 4 different models, and if you line them all up, I'm not sure I could differentiate them.
right.
I say that now, uh, uh, like, their styling was so similar. It was, "Oh, this one has 2 seats, this one's a 2+2, this one is
Mhm.
the Grand Tour with a 12-cylinder engine." Like, yeah, I am on board with you completely.
And I think that's the era where, I mean, if you shop around, you can score one of those in a halfway decent shape for not a lot of coin.
I think you're right. Yeah. You just
Um,
gotta be
and
willing to, do maintenance on it, but
yep,
otherwise, yeah.
yep. If I'm gonna put that much work into a car, I'll just learn the old XJS.
Ooh,
Just give me the old V12.
that's a good answer.
Just give me the old V12 with the ugly engine under the hood that you hate, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, I still
What do
hate
you
that
think,
engine.
Ramblers? What's your favorite Aston Martin? What a segue. Email us podcast@motor1.com. We've been a little soft on emails and comments lately. So we
We
need
have
to
that.
start hearing from you again. I know everybody's getting into the new year, and your resolution is I'm going to stop listening to so many damn podcasts, but you need to listen to this one.
What
It's this
monsters revolution is that? Who are you?
this should be your resolution. Listen to more rambling about cars.
That's
So
right.
yeah, shoot us some emails. Talk to us about the E-Ray. Talk to us about your favorite Aston. Talk to us about some of the other weird stuff that we're going to have coming up a little bit later on. I'm speaking
A
of which,
little
Bruce.
bit. I think the next one is pretty weird, man.
Well, do you want to jump right into the next one? The next weird
Sure.
one?
Well,
Let's
let's
jump.
talk about the Mazda MX-30 R-EV, which is the fabled return of the rotary engine. Kinda, sorta, maybe, not really. I
No,
don't know.
it's there. The rotary is there.
It is rotary engine. It has
The
a rotary engine, but
the
is this
complete
the way we
name.
wanted it to come back? I don't know about that.
I mean, if you want to talk tongue twister. Let me see if I can get this right the first time. And I
Please.
promise this is only iced tea that I'm drinking. The Mazda MX-30 Skyactiv R-EV.
That's right.
Um, Skyactiv because there's still
Sure.
a gasoline engine in there. Well, sorry, Skyactiv R-EV because there is a gasoline engine in there, but there's also an electric motor in there. You guessed it. The rotary engine is the gas engine, but it doesn't connect to the wheels at all. It's
Nope.
only a range extender designed to charge the battery to give the electric motor the juice to carry you 300. Where's my notes here? I almost remember this just right off the top of my head. 373 miles.
That's right.
So I mean, obviously you're burning gas for that.
For
But
some of it.
but compared to the MX-30, which is EV only, that has a range of what, like about 100 miles or so.
I think it's
Very, very,
101, 103.
very limited range for a
Yes,
modern EV.
correct.
So here you have the return of the rotary that serves as a range extender. It's an 830cc direct injection, high compression single rotor. It makes 75 horsepower, and all it does is power up the battery. So there's
It's a
no connection
generator,
between that.
essentially.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
if you took
There,
a generator, put it in the back of your car, or put it in the back of your electric
mhm,
vehicle, and then routed the cord and plugged it into where it goes. It's a generator.
mhm. It is. It is. It's generating power. Here's where I think things get kind of interesting. because of course you already have the MX-30, which is a full EV. It has
Correct.
kind of a small battery. For,
Kinda.
for this one, the battery is even smaller.
Yep.
I was expecting pretty much the same statistics for the EV with the range extended. Put in there, Mazda reduced the battery size. This is a 17.8 kilowatt hour battery.
Which
You
is
have a 50.
tiny.
You have a 53-mile EV only range. So the EV only range is cut in half here. But really, we're talking about a hybrid vehicle here. We're not talking about
In a
just a pure.
sense,
We're not
yes.
talking about a pure EV. The gasoline engine doesn't power the wheels at all, but it is using a gasoline engine in conjunction with an electric motor to get you 373 miles down the road. Which that wipes out range anxiety right there. You're going a long ways, and you're then topping off the tank, turning your power generator back on to feed the battery, to feed the electric motor. So, that's wiping out the bulk of the criticism that we had from the MX-30 EV, was that it just didn't have range to be of super interest to people. And Mazda, they're envisioning this as more of like an urban type vehicle where, hey,
Yes.
you're running around town. If you're commuting back and forth, if you have, even if you have a 25-mile commute to work back and forth,
Yeah, you could make
25
that
in,
work.
25 out, you're never dipping into your fuel tank, right? You're never dipping into the fuel tank. So you can still run that EV power, but then, hey, here comes the weekend. You're going to go visit grandma that's 4 hours away. You don't have to park the MX-30 and try to cram everything into your Miata to get up there. You can take the MX-30 because you have the rotary engine as a range extender. And I know, Bruce, we've talked about it before, but maybe this is a very, very good application for a rotary, which is much more compact in size than
It is.
your other internal combustion engines.
It
It
is.
runs smoother. It runs much smoother. This
It
could
does.
be. I'm very interested to drive this. I would love to drive this to see how this combination works.
Well, I would love to drive it too, but to my
But
knowledge, and maybe things will change, there are no plans at this point to bring the rotary range extended version to the US, unless I'm mistaken.
you are not mistaken, but I
So
want to make it
that's
well, let's make it clear to everybody listening. Mazda hasn't said one way or the other.
correct. Yes.
They've just kind of left it open-ended.
Well, they said it's
Um,
going to Europe and Japan. They have not
right.
said anything about the United States one way or the other.
They haven't said it's not coming here. They haven't said it is.
Correct.
It's
Yes.
just, hey, this vehicle is launching for Europe, launching for Japan. It launched last week. And here's where things get even stranger. Um, this launched just as Mazda started, Mazda
Oh God,
USA, I
yes,
should
yeah.
clarify. Here's where things get even stranger, because the MX-30 e-Skyactiv R-EV launched for the Brussels Motor Show.
Yes.
At the same time, Mazda USA started a teaser campaign for the new CX-90 three-row crossover that is United States, that is North America specific. It's going to be available as a plug-in hybrid. It's also going to be available just with internal combustion power. It's going to be running their inline six engine, their
Their
3.3
new one.
liter
Yep.
engine. And that teaser campaign launched the same time the MX-30 launched. And there was actually some confusion going on there, because it's
Yep.
like, would Mazda make two major announcements at the same time? Well, the answer is no. Or the answer is yes.
Yeah, the answer is kind of yes and no.
The answer is yes and no, because it wasn't a reveal of the CX-90. It was
Yeah.
the launch of a teaser campaign for the reveal of the CX-90, which is coming on January 31st. But the timing of that was all very suspect. It's like,
Correct.
there's been no mention of the MX-30 with the rotary coming to North America. Are they timing these announcements in such a manner to try to pull attention away? I don't know. It's a very strange move, I think, to have two rather significant announcements taking place around the same time.
It is.
But I think it would make all the sense in the world to bring the MX-30 rotary to the United States, because that's going to solve a lot of people's worry about getting a Mazda EV, because the MX-30 with a range of 100 miles, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce, but didn't Mazda have a deal where it's like, if you buy one of our MX-30s, we'll let you use another one of our cars whenever you want?
For
I
like
mean,
within a
that
certain
was a
period
legit
of time,
thing.
yes. But yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that was a legit
I think
thing.
it was with it. You could use another vehicle. I think it was for 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah,
Yeah.
like if you need to go on a longer trip, because they basically admitted that this vehicle was not good for long road trips,
Mhm.
you could rent another vehicle from a dealer and take that on said road trip. So yeah, uh, I like I said, I in my head, I think it was 3 years, maybe it was a year, but it wasn't indefinitely,
Mhm.
certainly.
Right. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world to have it over here. Whether Mazda sees it that way, whether it comes over, that still remains to be seen. But to
Correct.
make it clear, we don't know yet one way or the other.
Yep.
Um, in the meantime, yeah, we have the CX-90 that's coming out on January 31st. Of course, you'll be able to get all of that information at motor1.com. You can go to there right now, because I mean, we've already posted articles on some of the teasers that have started. We've learned a little bit more about its engine. Um, and I don't have any of these stats written down, so I'm just going off the top of my head. I think it's rated at 340 horsepower. It's the most powerful production Mazda
Is that
ever.
right?
And I
Now
mean,
I gotta double check that
it's the
number.
same engine used in the CX-60, I think, which is tuned to 280 some horsepower. So the CX-90, it's gonna have more power. It's also going to be available with a plug-in hybrid powertrain. That's one of the things we don't know yet. Will
Sure.
the
Yeah.
plug-in hybrid use the inline six and have even more output, or is it going to use the familiar four-cylinder plug-in hybrid powertrain that's out right now? So that's something we still don't know. Presumably that'll be answered here over the next couple of weeks as we get more Mazda teasers. So
Mhm.
hey, there's some extra news from Mazda that we weren't planning to talk about, but
Sure.
just the timing of the announcements for those two things. It's
It was
interesting.
odd.
It's odd and interesting, and I will leave it at that.
Sure.
Um, so we have one other.
Well, we have
We have a
so
couple things to talk about, right?
right. Do we want to have this be a shorter episode and talk about some interesting EV news? Or do we want to talk about some news from South Korea?
Let's touch on the news from South Korea, because
Okay.
the Hyundai Kona is a fairly significant vehicle. It's been
It
selling pretty
is.
well. Of course, we have a new model that sort of debuted a few weeks back.
Right. You and
Hyundai,
we talked about the
we talked
design
about it.
of it, but at that time we had no spec information
No
because
specs, no stats, no anything. They wanted to hold that until later.
correct.
Well, it's later. It's later, and we know a little bit more about the Kona. We know that it's a little bit bigger. The wheelbase is 2.3 inches longer.
Well, I think we knew
Um,
all that stuff. It was just the
Overall,
powertrain stuff was kind of the big
well,
question.
but I gotta lead up into it, right? I
Okay.
gotta
Okay.
bring the ramblers up here casually. They didn't. They probably just finished watching last week's episode. You can go back a few more weeks and get the basic Kona info. But we'll just jump right to what you want to know.
Yep.
In South Korea, I want to preface that because
Right, because we should say we have South Korean market information. We still don't have
we
North
still don't have
American
North
market
American. So
information.
whether it changes for North America remains to be seen. Um,
Exactly.
but I mean, no big surprises here. You can get a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, 147 horsepower, 132 pound-feet of torque going through a CVT. That's your base powertrain. You can upgrade to the 1.6 turbo that makes 195 horsepower, 195 pound-feet of torque. That
Mhm.
connects to an 8-speed automatic. There is also a hybrid model using a 1.6-liter engine, a bespoke 1.6. It's not just the straight 1.6 turbo. That hybrid has a combined output of 139 horsepower, 195 pound-feet of torque. I mean, that's kind of the gist of the new Kona information.
Yep.
They're talking about the powertrain, and again, these are this is what's coming for South Korea for that market. Whether it changes significantly for North America, that'll be for debuts at a later date. But I mean, it's going to have memory seats, wireless charging, over-the-air updates. Um, there's a pair
I
of
mean, in
12.3-inch
general,
screens in there, but there are still physical buttons. I'm kind of reading over what our colleague Adrian wrote about this one because I looked at the power and I kind of glossed over the rest, to be honest, because it's like, and we've had this discussion before. Automakers, just debut your stuff, man.
we have had this discussion. I would say in general, you know, Hyundai and Kia, which is, they're kind of the same automotive family. In South Korea, they have kind of some more base options
Hmm.
there, and then they have some more. I don't want to say premium. Some more higher end options that they offer here. So the 2-liter naturally aspirated gasoline engine, maybe for a base model, but I would bet. And again, we don't know any of this. I don't have any insider information that I'm sharing with anyone or
Hmm.
anything like that, but I bet the turbo 1.6 is the bulk of the ones that they sell here. Maybe
Right.
you get the 2-liter naturally aspirated in kind of a base-ish model, but again, I bet the turbo 1.6 is the one that we mostly see here.
Hmm. I would agree with that. Um, and as far as exactly when it will be on sale here, that's something we still don't know. Um,
Correct.
but Bruce, we talked about this the last time we were talking Kona. Um, I love the way it looks.
I agree.
I love the way it looks. It just has that. It has just the really thin sort of a light bar up there that integrates the
It
headlights
looks like a big
and marker
Ionic 5
lights.
is what it looks like. And
I,
I
I
like the Okay,
go
you
ahead. Go
disagree.
ahead. No, no, no,
No, I
no.
like the Ionic
Mhm.
5, or as I often say, Ionique 5. However you say it, it looks like a stretched version of that, and I like that vehicle. So whenever I can kind of see those styling cues, I'm not against it. And I think this is a good looking vehicle. It's a compact-ish crossover. I could definitely see this competing against, things from Toyota, from Honda, from, brands like that. And it might be one of the better looking, at least, but styling is always subjective. So who knows?
I mean, now that you mention it, I can see some Ionic 5 cues in there.
Oh,
To
come
me
on.
to
That
me
huge crease coming up the flank.
to to
That's a
me to me though, it's more it's a little more rounded. It's a little more rounded, it's a little
it
softer on
is.
the
That's
edges,
true.
I think.
That's true.
Um the I love the way the front fascia design, the lower fascia. I mean, there's a fairly sizable grill down there, but it
Mhm.
doesn't look overbearing. I love how the lines just kind of angle back in contrast with just that kind of swooping thin light bar across the top. That's just a very, very satisfying contrast for me.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
could do without the really big kind of fender flares that are grayed out. Um, but aside from that, yeah, I think it looks great, and it looks good on the inside too. I mean, I think it's worth mentioning again. It's just a very clean design. It has those dual digital displays, but
Mhm.
there are still quite a few tactile buttons, which I think automakers need to stick with.
Agree.
I've been seeing some fresh arguments recently about how I mean we're not just talking about just convenience, but even a little bit of safety issue if you have to look down to see what you're touching instead of knowing and
Oh,
feeling,
definitely.
that
Yeah.
button and not having to take your eyes off the road, it's certainly better all around. So I'm
I
very
agree.
happy to see that combination in here. It still doesn't look like a very busy interior. I mean, we should
No,
be
no,
clear there.
no, no.
It still looks I think it looks very clean, very neat, very stylish, very posh, as maybe some of our European colleagues would say. Good all around. Go all around. Hyundai, give us some North American information. We want to know more.
Yeah, that's right. Well, while we're talking about South Korea, we're going to move halfway across the globe. We're going to talk about Europe and one of the, I'm going to say, the most interesting vehicles to come from Europe in a while. And that is, I got to
But hold
read
on, hold
here.
on, hold on, hold on. Before you share it,
Yes, go
before you
ahead.
share anything, Ramblers, here's a little bit of a challenge for you. Whether you are listening on Spotify, Apple, Google, any of the streaming platforms that we're on there, whether you're watching on YouTube, Motor One Podcasts, we're going to hold things up for just a second because I'm going to read you the headline
It
that our
was a
colleague
fantastic
Adrian came up
headline.
with on this article. I'm going to read the headline, and based on the headline, try to figure out what the hell we're talking about here. I'm going to omit a couple of keywords here.
Okay, I think that's totally fair.
Here's the headline: Ford Mustang Mach-E Special Edition and Special Edition are for partying until you can't party anymore. Now, what kind of aftermarket creations could you turn a Mustang Mach-E into where, and there are two.
There are two. Yeah.
One is for partying, and the second is for when you just can't party anymore. And it's a Mustang Mach-E. Bruce, let's talk for 30 seconds while we give everybody a chance to play along with this game.
Basically, this is the Jeopardy song. Everyone in your head, Jeopardy song. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
Or if you want to hear Baby Shark, just cut it off after 30 seconds. I just put Baby Shark into the head of like hundreds of people. Ford Mustang Mach-E Special and Special are for partying until you can't party anymore. That's one of the greatest headlines of our time.
Well, let's show the people. This is from Coleman. No, not the camping lantern or stove people. This is from Coleman, UK, and they have come up with a Ford Mach-E Hearse and limousine. So I gotta flip those around. The limousine is for partying. The hearse is for when you just can't party no more.
That is just amazingly epic and funny. Ford Mustang Mach-E limo and hearse are for partying until you can't party anymore. That's the headline. You can read the story at motor1.com. But we're going to tell you a little bit about it right now because it's one company that made both of these.
Right. I mean, because I guess once you make one, I mean, once you stretch it, like, okay, here, I got to pause this picture for anyone looking
and they
on
made
YouTube,
it, and they made it out of a Mach-E.
They did. I got to pause this photo for anyone who is watching on YouTube. It will be roughly at the 5830 mark or thereabouts.
Yep.
And
I mean,
it is a Ford Mach-E with a huge rear end for holding your very last place you're going to sleep. For lack of a better word, like it is a Ford Mach-E hearse, and honestly, it looks kind of cool. Like, could
you imagine if the back was just blacked out?
I want to go. Oh,
yeah.
What'd you say?
I said, could you imagine if the back was just completely blacked out? Let me describe what we're looking at here.
I don't want it to be blacked out. I want it to be clear so people could walk by and
no. Well, for the purposes of your final destination. But if I were to get this with the idea of, okay,
you're right.
I'm just going to make something cool and different out of it. The front clip and the Okay, so basically everything from the rear seats forward is normal Mach-E.
Correct.
Where you would expect to find the hatch and the rear wheels, it's extended by what? Probably another 8
Huh.
feet at
Yeah, that's
least.
safe to say. Yeah.
So the wheelbase is stretched way out. It looks like it looks like a Mustang Mach-E with an 8-foot pickup bed bolted to the back
It does.
with
Yeah.
the wheels at the back, and then you have a big topper that comes up with huge glass windows on the side. And
And in
then
the
the
back,
roof
you can see,
and in the
it's
back,
3 sides of
yep.
glass.
And then the roof just comes forward flat and straight until you get to the area of about where the hatch would normally be. And then it curves down and meets seamlessly with the roof of the Mach-E. So it's a stretched wheelbase Mach-E hearse with the back end completely open, which I be honest, I haven't seen generally on a hearse. Usually they're closed in.
Right. And we should say this is not a rendering. This is a real
It's real.
vehicle that they're
Yep,
making. This is
it's
not
real.
like, oh, someone rendered out a hearse Mach-E. No. This company is making not only the hearse, and I've got the photo up here, they're also making a limousine version.
A
So,
limousine, yes.
whether you're partying to the bar or partying to the grave, it exists.
And we should say the limousine looks like it has probably the same wheelbase.
I think it's identical.
It looks like it's stretched out. Obviously, instead of an 8-foot pickup bed being on the back, you just have the regular Mach-E rear end,
Yeah.
with just a big, huge section of fun bolted or welded into the middle.
Yep.
Your typical style hearse. It's just this is an electric Mustang Mach-E, and it's paired with a hearse. And what a weird combination. But hey, it's rambling about cars. Sometimes we got to be a little weird. And I love this. I love it.
Yep. I do too. This is the fun. I mean, funerals aren't fun. I'm not trying to say that. I have had loved ones pass away, but this is the kind of the fun part of the automotive hobby where I never expected anyone to say, yeah, that Ford Mach-E, we're making it into a hearse. Oh, we're also making it into a limo if that's what you need too. Like you can go to your wedding and to your funeral, same vehicle. But you know, and it looks so good and it's just fun. That's kind of what I'm saying here. I trust me, I'm not making fun of anyone who has lost a family member or something like that.
Of course.
I've my fair share, trust me. But this is just neat. It's fun. It's cool. Like you imagine this like a Ford Mach-E GT with the hearse body pack on it, just like riding into Valhalla with, a stupid amount of horsepower, both wheels at both ends smoking. Like, it's just fun like that. And it, it's absurd in its own way. And that's why we like this, or at least that's why I like this.
Oh, I mean, I'm there with you. I like the combination. If you were to just present, and I suspect this company did it on purpose like this, because if you just come out with a Mach-E hearse, okay, well, that's kind of neat. Different, but okay. Hey, companies do hearse conversions on vehicles all the time.
Sure.
To bring it out along with a limousine, okay. Now you have a Mach-E limo, and now you have a Mach-E hearse together from the same company.
Exactly.
I'll click that. I'll buy into that. I'll see what that's all about. And the more I look at it, the more I just want to black out that back window and just make it into some like weird futuristic Mad Max kind of vehicle. Could you imagine like putting some big spikes up there? And
oh yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah. All kinds of weird ideas, which means it's probably time for us to step away for a little while.
It probably is. It's probably time for us to step away for a week. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching or listening to this episode, however you happen to be receiving it. We appreciate all our listeners. And I'm going to say the cliche that I feel is a cliche because this is episode 107. But good afternoon, good evening,
Yes.
or good night. We appreciate all of our listeners whenever they happen to be listening to this show, because we just like, Smith and I and the other folks at motor1.com would be talking about cars whether or not you were listening, but we love the fact that you are listening and giving us attention and, reacting to our show and commenting on our show and things like that. It's a fantastic experience. And it's early in the year, and I know for Smith and I, things have been complicated. We've both been going through moves and stuff like that. But this show has kind of been the one constant thing, at least for me, that,
Very much.
haven't missed one. That, I know at Wednesday at 7:30 when we record that I'm going to be here and I'm going to be talking cars. And I honestly look forward to it because it's an escape for me in a certain way, because all of the other stuff, the dealing with housing stuff and all sorts of stuff like that, it all goes away, and I get to talk with cars with a friend of mine. And then you folks get to listen to that discussion. So it's fantastic, and I love it. Smith,
Preach
go ahead.
on. Preach on, mi amigo.
Okay.
And we always love hearing back from you. So Ramblers podcast at motor1.com. Catch our articles that summarize the podcast every Friday that go up at motor1.com. Visit us on YouTube, Motor One Podcast. You can comment there. You can comment on our articles. You can send us the emails. We also have our other podcasts, not Bruce and I, but we have the Motor One Happy Hour that goes live every Friday at 4:00. And you can see that on motor1.com's YouTube. You can see that right at motor1.com. You can see it on Motor One socials. That's live. And I'm looking forward. I think we're going to be doing some more collaborations with Seth and the guys going forward.
So. Yeah, I'd look forward to that.
Lots of great car talk. We love having you along. So thanks for joining us on this particular episode. We've got some guests that we're working on that we're going to have coming up here pretty soon. We've got some pretty good ideas coming for the future.
There's a guest I think within the next, it could be next week, it could be 2 weeks, I think we'll have. And there's one that I'm working on that I've kind of got my fingers crossed for, that I'm not going to mention just in case that kind of falls through. But so we've got guests, in the barrel that I hope are going to come up. So looking forward to that.
Good stuff happening. Stay tuned.
Yep. All right, everybody. That'll be our episode, and goodbye. Good luck. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.